we've had Dean Malenko, the man of 1,000 holds, right? I'm sure there's probably a man of 1,000 masks. I got Mr. Kennedy, Ken Kennedy. What was the other ones?
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, Mr. Anderson, Ken Anderson. Like, how many names have you had in the business?
I started out as Two Rivers Jack. That was the first.
Yeah, I remember that. I've been reading about it. Not seeing it.
The guy that so I had reached out when I decided that I wanted to get into the wrestling business. I reached out to this guy named Rockin' Randy. He ran the North American Wrestling Federation outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And then he, for whatever reason, I was from Two Rivers, Wisconsin, and he told me, like, if you make it, I'm going to call you Two Rivers Jack. And so
I say it's the stuff they come up with. I always say to my guests on here, this is like the first time we're on a road trip together. The discussions we have. When did you first start watching wrestling? Do you recollect?
Yes. It was like 1998, 97, 98, something like that.
And you would have been?
I was like 20 years old.
Okay, so you came later.
Yeah. I was, when I was a kid, when I was really little, I watched briefly.
Right.
I remember the cartoon on Saturday was what initially got me into it. And then like Saturday night's main event would be on. I don't think it was a regular show, right? It was just like every once in a while.
A couple times a year, 4 or 5 times a year, I think.
And my dad would let me stay up and watch that. And then for whatever reason.
Was your dad a fan of the business?
No, not really.
Yeah.
No. And then I just sort of fell off of it, and I fell into it's all fake, and
sure.
So like my whole life, grade school, high school, it was why would you watch that stuff? And I had a really good friend who would wear wrestling shirts all the time, and he would talk about it.
Yeah.
And I would give him such a hard time. Like, why do you watch that garbage? It's a bunch of guys rolling around on the floor with each other, and tights and baby oil and
diapers,
bag shavers, and then one night I was at his house, and he was like, "We're watching wrestling tonight. That's it."
Right.
And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And so I'm watching, and he goes, watch this. And I heard this glass break, and this guy with the shaved head drove to the ring in a pickup truck, and he had a 6-pack of beer, and he was like, stunning people. And, I was like, okay, that guy's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then my roommates at the time would watch wrestling, and so I would like, tell me when Stone Cold's on and I'll come down and watch it. And then I would come down and I would watch, and then I'd see The Undertaker, and I was like, well, that guy's kind of cool too. And then I slowly started getting sucked into. And then within weeks, I was bought in completely. And I was like, why did I miss this? Why have I been missing this all these years? And then wrestling had become so ubiquitous. It was like everywhere, wrestlers on the cover of TV Guide, and Stone Cold's doing the Got Milk commercials and the ads and stuff like that. So then I was just like all in. That's all we would talk about was pro wrestling.
Me, like the moment where I knew wrestling had changed was when I saw Hulk Hogan walk on the Johnny Carson show. I was just different. You didn't see wrestlers there. Yeah, oh yeah. It was. I started watching when I was really young, like 4 or 5. Studio wrestling out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Then before cable, and you get out of it, you get a little bit older. When I was about 12 or 13, cable came to Pittsburgh. And my mom and dad were divorced. I was at my dad's house for the weekend, and they had just put the box in, and they gave my dad a TV Guide. So he's looking through the TV Guide, and he goes, hey, wrestling's on tonight at midnight. Well, I didn't even have it a day my dad even knew what wrestling was. Hell yeah. So we sat down, and the very first segment on that show was the Grand Wizard, who was really good on the stick and just squirrely, and you hated him, right? But Superstar Billy Graham, the bleached blonde hair, the body. I was a big comic book mark, and I'm looking at this and going like this was the coolest I've ever seen.
Just right away.
Yeah, they're behind a cage, and then he's getting ready for a big angle with Bruno, who is of course a Pittsburgh guy, and he takes the cab. He goes, "I would do this to you, San Martino," and it was like a real life Superman, tie-dyed, the gift of gab, and I'm going, hey, he's going to kill Bruno San Martino, right? And then my friends and I build a ring, and it takes a whole different tang of the story. Obviously, you were involved in sports prior.
Sort of.
Yeah.
I never played I never played football or anything like that. I played football with my friends.
Sure.
I was in swimming. I was a regular swimmer, really, decent swimmer.
Right.
Never made it to state or anything like that. I ran track a little bit. But I was and I was kind of a theater kid a little bit. Like I enjoyed it, but
little setup.
Yeah.
The theater and the sports.
And it was kind of funny how it was like, when I found wrestling, it was like, I did enjoy sports. I liked watching. I just, like I said, I never played, like, I was never in organized sports.
Right.
And I had just gotten into working out. That friend of mine that introduced me to wrestling, he had also introduced me to like working out and bodybuilding a little bit. And so it was like all of these things that I love. It was like this perfect marriage of all those things.
And so there's an epiphany. My God, what am I missing all these years, right?
Totally.
Because that's a very different, like most people have a story similar to mine. They watched it younger, came back to it, whatever. But like in yours, the fascinating part is the theater catch, because as you know, in our business, it's both athletic and what I guess kids today and other things would call cosplay or headspace or whatever. And if you have theater experience, that's going to make that a lot easier to do. That was honestly for me, that was the awkward part. Like you feel a little bit embarrassed to go out and do these things, right? But you've done different.
I was totally, that was the part that I was super comfortable with. Yeah. Was just throwing myself out there, putting myself out there. Promos I loved. And, you know, guys that could talk, that was like who I gravitated towards.
Well, as you know, that's a huge part of you, as you've done so well with your career. I was talking on the segment for our other show with the answering the questions from our fans, that how integral and important the promo is. I think it's at times more important than the moves, right? It's because it's the setup, it's the hook that's going to bring the fans in. And it had become a lost art. But full disclosure, I was never, it wasn't like because I was screwed up, I'm not going to watch it. I was pretty busy on the road still. So like I didn't really want to come home and watch wrestling because of that. But when I did start dabbling back into it a little bit, I saw you. And I thought, man, like the whole, the drop mic, like the old boxing stuff, you know, all that, it seemed like a throwback in ways to a previous era. And that hooked me in. That interested me because like it looked to me like I could tell you had some kind of athletic background, and then the presence on camera that is the later thing that you learn in our business. And from the first time I saw you, it was great to watch. For me to see somebody that was known for promos, suddenly we have another guy that can do this, and it was important.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. It was fun to watch. What was your, okay, so now you've started watching it, you've realized you've been missing out on something, but like I always ask people, because every time we're at a convention, thousands of people walking through here, I believe that every person in that building, if you said, if I could snap my fingers and make you a wrestler, they would do it, right? That's why they're there. Yeah. So what was it about you that said, you think I can do this? I mean, it's the dressing room's full of monsters and legends. You watch the guys that like Harley that are just phenomenal at it. And it's a ballsy thing for never having that back.
What makes you think that you can do this?
Right.
I like I said, all we would talk about was pro wrestling. And I was at a party one night and a bunch of us standing around just shooting the breeze. And one of my friends said, you know that like you can go to wrestling schools? There's like, I work with this lady and she says that her son goes to a wrestling school. And I was like, what do you mean? Because it never even dawned on me, like, how do these guys do this?
Right,
like, how do you learn how to do this?
Yeah.
And so that's all I could think about. I remember I went home that night and just probably like 1 o'clock in the morning, I jumped online and there was no AOL or it was like no Google at the time. Or, you know, it was like, it was like Ask Jeeves or something like that. And I typed in, I remember thinking if I'm looking for a pro wrestling school, there's not going to be one. I'm going to have to go to one of the major cities like LA, New York, or Chicago. So I looked up, Chicago was the closest city. It was like 3 hours away. I said, I'll look up Chicago. So I typed in and that's when it brought me to the North American Wrestling Federation and they had a number and I called and I left a message just inquiring about training. Yeah. And I remember thinking, and I didn't know anything about the business. Right. I had never read a wrestling book. I had certainly not read Mick Foley's book. In fact, I don't think it had come out. Yeah. But I was like, because I worked every other weekend at a nuclear power plant. I was a security guard. And I remember thinking like, I can go down, I'll drive down on the weekends and I'll train. I can sleep in my car and then I can come back up and I can go back and forth like that, you know? Yeah. And this guy called me a few days later and said, hey, I got your number from Rockin' Randy in Chicago. I'm opening a school in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is 30 minutes away from me.
Yeah, well, nice.
And he's like, I'd like to we'll do a tryout. So I went up to Green Bay the next day and it was $175 for the tryout. I remember I walked into this room. It was like an old JCPenney.
Yeah.
And it was like, it had, it'd been almost torn down or whatever. Right. All the lights were off except for one light above the ring. And it was a 16-foot low rider. Yeah. The ropes were kind of saggy. There was like duct tape and rips and tears and blood stains and God knows what stains all over the place, And I remember thinking like,
this is wrestling.
I can't believe this. This is awesome. Like, no,
I love it.
I was like, I can't believe that's a real wrestling. And he's like, that's the honky tonk man blood right there. And
I love it.
I got in the ring and he showed me how to bump. He showed me how to run the ropes. A couple other things, and I was just like, "This is it."
Yeah, like knowing our business, me showing a kid how to run the ropes isn't teach you how to run the ropes, right? I mean, did you come back with your back all bruised up and?
No, because like I was always shown they showed me to run it like flat right away,
See, we were taught differently. We were taught to lean it, but always wrap the arm.
Yeah.
And there was a match early on. The viewers have heard this story before, but Mick Foley and Dominic were wrestling me and one of Dominic's students named Dave Klebanski. Dave was a big, like 420, just a big, not fat, not muscular, just big, And he and Mick are doing the spot where they're running the ropes. So I'm like, I'm watching the center of the ring and they're like doing their crisscross and I see Mick hit the ropes and I blink and Mick's gone. I just, what the hell was that? Mick had hit the ropes, snapped the rope, and the turnbuckle let loose, and it shot right by my head. It would have killed me if it hit me. But because Mick, he didn't even know what he was doing, tensed up, we had that arm wrapped, and so that always stuck in, like how Dominic taught us, like he would have landed right on his head if not.
Yeah.
So, but it's always fascinating to me to hear the different styles because there's not a right style. Like that's proper, wrapping is proper. It's what you're comfortable with.
Yep.
So it's okay. So how long was the tryout?
I always tell my students like the right way is the way that nobody gets hurt. Right?
Yeah. Like, bingo. Yeah.
The tryout was probably 2 hours, and then we went.
He blow you up?
Not too terribly. Like he didn't. Yeah. He was never that guy was never. The old school style. I've heard these horror stories about like people. They want you to quit. They almost want you to quit.
Yeah.
And he wasn't like that.
Nor was Dominic. Yeah.
I want to show you things the right way, and then we went and we sat down and I remember we went to Grandma Gertie's. It was this restaurant, hole in the wall restaurant. And we had lunch and talked about it. And he's like, Do you want to do it? I was like, how did I do?
Yeah.
He was like, oh, you passed. So you can start next Sunday. And then it was every Sunday I would work, or every other Sunday actually, because I worked every other weekend.
Right.
9 months I trained.
Yeah, as a security guard at the nuclear. So America, you're safe. You got pro wrestlers watching your nuclear stuff. So now I'm curious, how long did you train? And what did he charge for the training at that time?
I think it was $12.50.
Wow.
And I believe I never actually paid it off. Like he let me pay in installments, and I never completed my.
Yeah.
I never paid it off, and he never really chased me or whatever. He was.
Well,
we became friends. We became.
Right. Years before, I guess. What years is 98, you said?
99.
Okay, 99. So in 82.
No, it was actually in 98.
Okay.
Because I debuted in January of 99.
Okay. So 82, 83, Dominic was charging $1,500. But again, like you asked last night, for how long? That was just, until you got it. You come every week. But it's like you said, he didn't like take all the money from you. I told you the story last night with Dominic, same thing. Do you suppose there was probably some point, like you have a wrestling school. If you got that star student and he goes, hey, Mr. Kennedy's teaching me.
Yeah.
That's a selling point, right? His kid's pretty good. I'm going to go to Mr. Kennedy's wrestling school. I think Dominic and this guy, do you think that was part of it? Like, and they're thinking not coming after the money.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Because I started working independence and I started traveling a lot, and I was a really hard worker and I got along with people and so he was like,
A lot of indies up in that area?
Yeah, there were a fair amount between like Chicago, Wisconsin, and then Minnesota. I started traveling over to Minnesota a lot.
Yeah.
And Minnesota's always been a hotbed for pro wrestling. And at the time, there were probably 5 or 6 indies that were working. So, you know, it was like a couple times a month I'd go over there.
Was Vern still in business in 98?
No.
Out by that time?
No.
Yeah,
he wasn't. No, neither Vern nor Greg. It was just Eddie Sharkey was though. I
knew Eddie very well. Did you ever meet Derek Dukes up there? Derek, good guy. Yeah, I haven't seen him for years, but good guy. So how long, but from the time you started training until you had that first match?
9 months.
Oh, that's about normal. You're about
and
normal.
if it was up to me, I probably would have trained another 6 months because I've always been a guy that like I want to make sure that I'm doing everything right.
Yeah.
And it turns out that sometimes you just have to put yourself out there and then kind of fine tune it as you go. Yeah.
With Dominic, it was, we would be months, I think a couple months in, he sent me to Puerto Rico, but he knew it wasn't going to be for matches. It was just going to be go out and do whatever they needed you to do.
Yeah.
The penultimate thing to me with Dominic was his approach to safety, was to make sure that we were throwing the guy right and landing right and being careful. Did your guy do the same? Very good, very good. That's important.
Yep.
As fans would probably understand.
Safety is just and especially safety of your opponent. Anytime if you go to pick somebody up and you don't feel like you're going to be able to return him to the earth safely,
right?
Audible out, and I would rather hurt myself than hurt the other guy.
Sure,
you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
that kind of thing.
Now, I'm curious, like when you were training at that time, were the wrestlers or the trainers at that time, we used to always hear from not just Dominic, but like when Bruno would come over or whoever, there were always these wrestling stars coming by. I mean, not always, but a couple times a year. But we were always told the top 3 rules of wrestling: take care of your opponent, take care of yourself, take care of each other. And I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine, the 7-foot actor, is always on the road with me the other day, and I said, you stop. I asked Kevin Sullivan.
I love that guy. He's great. By the way.
What a monster, right?
Yeah.
But I asked Kevin Sullivan this. What was it, about 3 years ago when I asked Kevin, 3.5 years ago, how many matches you had in your career? Because I was just starting in my head like conjuring how many times I worked, and he goes, I just figured this out. He said about 10,000. I went, okay, in that 10,000 matches, how many times were you physically unable to go to the ring? He said 1 time, the last match. He said, I couldn't go to the next match because the kid dropped me on my head. And you think about doing something 10,000 times, especially as unorthodox as Kevin was, and not getting hurt or not hurting other people. And that's the thing that always, I give all the props to our business, because back in the day, we're on the road 350, 370 matches. And it was rare that there was a serious injury, maybe a sprain here, stitches there or whatever, but not like, Ken needs surgery or going to be out for 6 months. And now it seems a lot higher than that. What's your thoughts on that as to why that's happening? Have they gotten away from the safety issue or the safe approach?
No, it might have something to do with the style. There's a lot more high risk stuff taking place. I think.
Yeah.
Not flat bumps.
Right. Now, when you started working these early shows, this is when you were Twin Cities, Twin Rivers Jack?
Two Rivers Jack. That was the first time. It was actually the first night I debuted. I remember I sold like 300 tickets. I'm not kidding you. I hustled.
Yeah,
like
that's
my
impressive.
hometown.
Oh, you mean you got people to buy the 300 tickets?
Yes, I sold to my friends, family, guys that I worked with.
Yeah.
Like I went around, hung flyers. I was like really excited about having my first match.
Yeah.
So I packed them in this place.
Nice.
And then the next night I worked for Rock and Randy down in it was like Whitewater, Wisconsin, whatever. It was funny because CM Punk and Colt Cabana were both on that show.
Yeah.
And he called me Two Rivers Jack. I got no music, and I wrestled a fake Golga. Remember Golga?
Yeah.
So it was just a big guy that wore a mask. And I remember I got one piece of offense. It was a drop kick, which he no-sold.
Yeah.
I threw. It was a good drop kick too, but he just like staggered a little bit, But it was his way of like, you don't get anything when you come into the business. Right. You got to earn it.
Sure.
Which I knew. I was like,
yeah, of course. I always tell the story about when Dominic sent us to WWF 83, 3, I think it might have been early. And the first time I went, I was so naive. I used my real name, and next time I was like, bit pretentious. I thought, like, if I ever hope to have a career, I don't want to be known as that guy, right? So the next time I was Mike Kelly.
Oh, okay.
But when he sent us up there, obviously, most times at the independent shows, like even back then, were they filming? Were they taping it?
Mm-hmm. Most of them. It was at least a hard cam.
Yeah. Just something they could feedback, like in training and show you, and good.
And if not, I always made sure that like my girlfriend's brother had a camera and he was filming it, like just so that I could watch myself back. And
that's light years ahead. Like I would have never, in my first year or two in the business, thought of that. I was so focused just on the wrestling stuff and trying to pick that up. Was there any reason you did that? Was it consciously? I want to have a record so I can learn.
Yep.
Wow.
I wanted to watch my stuff back and see what I did good and what I did.
Yeah, that green in the business, that's
poorly.
impressive. Like I would have never thought of that. Yeah, crazy. When you, like even today, like can you watch your stuff back and not be hypercritical?
No.
You see every mistake, right?
Every mistake.
Yeah, it's awful.
I always tell my students this. I have never, and it's like, whenever I have a student who's sort of like, they'll watch one of their matches and they're really giddy about it and really happy and stuff. And I'm like,
I'm great.
they're, or they're just looking for a pat on the back from me. Like, did you see my drop? Yeah, your drop. Of course, your drop kick was good. Your drop kick was good. Like, and I get it. Like, people do need that pat on the back.
Yeah.
And everybody responds different. Like, everybody needs a different coaching style.
Yeah.
But I am super critical. I've never had a match in my life that I've watched it and gone like, that was awesome.
Oh yeah, same here. Yeah.
My favorite match that I've ever been a part of was Kurt Angle, 2009 lockdown inside a steel cage for TNA.
Yeah.
And I still watch it to this day and cringe at certain parts. Why did I do that?
But see, I think that's why you've attained to the business, right? It's if we're our own worst enemy, our own critics. I honestly, I say this all the time. And I firmly believe this. People say, "Hey, you've mastered the business." I don't think it's possible to master the business. You can get well versed in it.
Yep.
But like, I still learn stuff. I never thought of that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Now, I learn stuff from my students.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. Now, when you're like the kids, like you mentioned earlier about this, there's been this tectonic shift of what Bruno and Dominic did to what we did now to what they're doing today. And I don't mean to infuse in this that this way was right and that way was wrong or vice versa. But the biggest thing to me, again, because of the way we were constantly drilled with safety. And I'm watching, I have this thing when I'm watching, I'll be watching just, I don't get it like, hey, Baba, I don't get in that way. I'm analyzing. And is he okay? Hey, like, are you the same way? Like, that tense comes up.
Especially when I'm watching my students.
Yeah,
training.
Of course.
Because
with what
I'll just say, like, are you okay?
Right.
But even if it's in the middle of a match, we do every Tuesday or every Wednesday, we do match night.
Yeah, Dominic used to do that. It's crazy.
And I don't care where they are in the match. Like, are you okay? Yes, I'm okay.
Yeah. So, like, there used to be a set of twins in the neighborhood. They were like 5-6 years old. And another kid was like 7 or 8 years old. And they would hoist themselves up on the window and watch Dominic would throw stuff at the window, make him run away. Those guys became my son's football coaches at the school. It was like crazy. Like, I was like, oh my God, we're full circle to make you feel a little old, right? When do your kids come in and say, hey, coach, I saw this thing the other night on AEW or fill in the blank, whatever company. And you have to tone it back for them and say, like, no, you're not ready for that, or that's a dangerous, because what we do is really dangerous. It's just that we've been so well trained at it.
Not really. Like, they kind of know that I'm very fundamental oriented. I will let people try things, but we got to make sure that, like, there's crash pad and there's spotters and stuff like that.
Right.
But like, I don't have to pull people back too often.
Good.
I feel like they listen really well.
Yeah. When I had a school, it was
if you can't do a headlock takeover,
right?
Well, why are we doing?
Sure.
Let's do the headlock takeover before we do the moonsault.
So, as a guy that owns a school and runs a school, we had the House of Hardcore for ECW that Taz and Perry ran above it, those guys. Excuse me. Paul wanted Pittsburgh because we were a really good business in Pittsburgh. So my brother had a building. It was perfect, right downtown in my hometown and everything. And so we set this thing up. And I forget there was some reason I was late getting to training. It was some emergency. And I come walking in and my students are all like dead quiet. Oh, we're so quiet. You know, I walk in, I look at my ring, there's blood in my ring. I start looking around and I see like one of the guy, his name was big. In fact, he was on the ECW pay-per-view in Pittsburgh when I wrestled Bam Bam. He's one of the security guards. Big, long, blonde hair, just a big guy. Mm-hmm. He's not there. I said, okay, he wants to tell me what happened. While I was not there, he decided this 6'2", 320-pound guy decides he's going to do a moonsault. Uh-huh. Well, the ceiling was too low and his feet hit the ceiling, hit the light, broke the light, and he came down and cut his arm. So he came back, thinking he's going to get sympathy. I reamed his ass out. You know, like, dude, like, you could have broken your neck. You could have broken your back. And the liability's there, right? You could have, I could have you on video. Mr. Anderson knows he can get hurt and blah, blah, blah. And you can still sue me. Yeah, right? So
I have a funny story about like something similar. So I've always told them, like, if you haven't been, especially if they're just starting out, like, if I haven't shown you how to do this, don't do it. If I look over here, if we're working on chain wrestling, we're working on chain wrestling. Headlock, right? You know, like reversals, wrist locks.
And I just want to inject something here for you kids at home that are big fans of wrestling and watching, and you play around in the neighborhood or whatever, or you're a young guy breaking or girl breaking into the business. Listen to what we're talking about, because we're pros that know how to make it look dangerous when it's really safe because of how we're doing it, and there's a huge margin of error for serious injury. So please take that into consideration.
Yeah, for sure. So I just told him I walked away because a mother had come in with her 15 or 16-year-old son, and she was curious and wanted to get into business. Sure. And so I'm taking her around and showing. At the time, we were in a big boxing gym, so there was a separate area where there was actually like a full weight room, and so I had walked down there to show her that area, and we were talking. She's like, I will say that I'm nervous though, because like I see the shows and it looks like they're getting hurt. I don't want him to get hurt. He's 15 or whatever. I go, safety is like of paramount importance here. Like we take that really seriously.
But acknowledge they can still get hurt. Like
sure.
I'm sure you've been hurt. I've been hurt. Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure.
Right now, like.
Oh, nice. Don't punch out. Are real?
Does that hurt?
Yeah, right.
So we're literally, the words had just come out of my mouth, and this kid comes running over to me, and he goes, "Coach, look at this." And it was like his thumb looked like there was extra joints in it. Oh. And it was like, and he's like,
and his mother's standing right there.
Yeah. I had literally, she just said, like, I'm worried he's going to get hurt. And I went, no, not here. Safety, coach. And he's like, look what I did. And he goes, do you think you can reset this? And I was like, no, I can't reset that. I'm thinking, like, that's a liability issue
over here.
And it turns out, I said, how did you do that? And he was like, I slipped and I fell. We were working on chain wrestling and I slipped. Well, then, so he leaves, and I come to find out that he, for whatever reason, there was a crash pad next to him. His girlfriend was training with him at the time too. And he had said his excuse was they were training and she slipped and fell on top of him and she hurt him. Yeah, she did that to him. And my other students said, like, hey, I don't want to be a tattletale, but like, we were chain wrestling and he kept asking somebody to try a rock bottom onto the crash pad. And we were all like, no, we shouldn't be doing that. He told us not to do that. And so he grabbed his girlfriend, and then she did it. And that's how he got hurt. And he actually hurt himself. And like, just the idea that, like, one, he did that in the first place. Two, that he would throw his girlfriend under the bus. Right.
Like, what a heel.
Wow.
So it was it broken, obviously, or dislocated?
Yeah, it was dislocated or something like that. Like, he ended up going to the hospital.
Yeah, and right on cue, as the mom had just asked this question.
You couldn't write it.
Yeah,
you couldn't write that better.
It would look too corny if you wrote it that way. Yeah. Now, I'm curious, have you had any students yet get out and start making it in the business?
Tiffany Stratton is one of my students.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she started with us. Actually, she's like personal family friends with Greg Gagne.
Okay.
And Greg reached out and said, like, hey, I've got this girl. I think she's got a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I can get her a tryout with WWE because he still has some stroke there.
Yeah.
And he said, would you mind training her? So she came to my school for about 6 months, and then Greg got her a tryout with WWE. It's funny. On the day that she went down for her tryout, she said she cut a promo, and then they came and said, guys, we're stopping this. Everybody has to go home. COVID. They just shut the country down for COVID. Literally, right at that moment, they pulled the plug and she went home. And she just continued to, we were shut down for almost 2 years.
Right.
We were shut down. And then, but I had my ring in a barn somewhere, and she kept going up and she would practice.
Nice.
And then she went back and she did her tryout and she killed it.
And with what you just said there, it makes sense. Because like in Dominic's school, I always tell this story. He had about 20 students, up and down from there. But I remember every single weekend, we would start dark in the morning, Saturday, 6:30, 7 a.m.
Wow.
And it'd be dark at night, and Dominic would be going, get the hell out of the ring. Janine's waiting for me. But it was always Mick, Cody Michaels, Brian Hildebrand, or Mark Curtis, me. The other guys would sit around. I remember they're good guy. I don't feel like I'm burying the guy. But like there was a guy, Tony Nardo, who lived in Clarksburg, West Virginia, just north of us here. And just a big, thick guy, fairly athletic. But you'd sit and listen as we'd be in the ring. You'd hear them over there talking, and they'd say like, one day he said something like, I watched Bret Hart last night. What's he got that I don't have? And I'm like, come on, dude, like seriously, And it's ironic that the ones that made it out of the gym were those guys I mentioned and me, and the ones that didn't, the other. Now, did you see the same thing? Like, was it obvious from an early point that Strat was going to be the one to make it out?
Yes, but she didn't have the gift of gab, so to speak, right? Like she was very athletic and very coachable. I could show her something, do it this way, and I could correct her one time, and she would be like, oh yeah, I get it, and she would do it the right way. Getting up the right way, the way we get up.
Yeah, fish to water. Yeah.
Well, I never heard that. What is that?
Fish to water.
Fish to water. Oh yeah,
fish do well in water, right? It's now. See, I'm a firm believer. Like I've always said this. I'm curious if you see the same. Now, obviously, we're all partial. I think Dominic had the best way of, proof is he had how many world champions come out of that class.
Yeah, what a crazy class. Like all that list.
But it was all, we wanted the same thing. And we were all helping each other get there. But we knew, like we didn't believe that we were as good as Brett and all those guys. We never thought we'd be as good as those guys. Yep. And so, like, the first night we were on a show in Clarksburg, West Virginia at Nathan Goff Arena, Dominic had known Bill Watts. They used to run the roads together. So Bill's UWF was getting really hot at the time, and he brought up half the crew. So they had the second half of the show, and it would be me and Mick on the curtain jerk because we'd have a good opening match. We came back from the match, and Terry Taylor and Eddie Gilbert, who were like running Bill's side of things, Travis took us out the loading dock and said, hey, we watched you guys. You're pretty good. You ever thought of going on the road? And honestly, the answer was no, because we knew we were okay, good enough for like local wrestling, but we're not like that good.
Yeah.
But Dominic's way of training was very basic. Like he didn't teach high spots and a move here or there, but that kind of thing, but mostly amateur stuff and safety. But in my humble opinion, it was the best way, because if you go in my mindset, having a preconceived notion of how Dominic did a match or set a match up, it was working with Pez and Bart and all these guys that you learned a little bit more from. And knowing how to do the moves is easy. When to do them, not do them. So, like, you take the same basic approach?
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
I started out with rolls, and then we go chain wrestling, and I don't even bump my students for a few weeks.
Nice.
Then running the ropes, and then we get, we do a back bump. Different, where you cross your arms and kind of fall back over somebody while they're behind you. Right.
And it's
how
awkward.
to fall and learn. Yeah.
Right. Because your whole life, your instinct, put your hand or arm out or whatever.
Yes, they're reaching out and trying to, like, I always tell them, like, how old are you? 25. Yeah. For 25 years, you have tried not to. Right. When somebody throws a punch at you, your instinct is to throw your hands up. However, I don't want you to do that right now. I want you to. And
it's hard to undo those, right? For as silly as it sounds, it took me forever to learn flat backing. Yeah. I couldn't get and then the first time you're like, damn, that didn't hurt at all.
Yeah. And you do it right?
Yeah. Now I'm
you land on your lower back so many times.
Right. With Stratton and other students of yours, obviously you're a guy that's really good on the stick. Do your kids come into your school expecting you or wanting you to teach them that from the beginning, or do they know that that's down the road?
I think that's something that, and that's also I in the sales pitch or whatever, like that's something that I believe is very important. So character work and promo skills is definitely something that we do. We have we'll do promo nights where we'll just they'll come in and all right, we're gonna do promos.
Yeah. You don't see it.
Yeah, and we do scripted promos too sometimes because I find that I don't remember who told me that. I think it was Dreamer suggested because everything you do in the business nowadays is scripted, and sometimes that's harder than saying it.
Sure.
In your own words.
Right.
It's like you want me to. It's acting.
Yes.
And so I'll give them scripted promos and see what they can do with it. I'll give everybody the same exact promo.
Nice.
See.
And I'm curious, was that something? Was that your ability to do it and do it so well? Did that stem from the theater background, or was that something you had already had affinity for, or where did that come from?
I think it was the theater background, speech class in high school. I love speech.
Yeah.
I was there was I don't know if you ever had forensics.
Oh yeah.
But there was forensics in my high school, and it was like you could do debate or.
That was mine. I loved arguing.
Debate. There was debate. There was you could give a speech. Mm-hmm. There was play acting, and I always did multi-group. There would be 4 of us, and there would be a little script, and you couldn't use any props or anything like that.
Right, just a little quick setup and do it.
And it would be 12 to 15 minutes, and we went to state 3 years in a row, got gold medal at state. Doing that stuff. So I think that really contributed to it. You'll
appreciate this story. When I went up as Dean Douglas, the first time I was on the road for live events, I did, like I said, a couple months of vignettes only from the studio. So I go in to do the promo, and I've always done this. I look into a camera. I've always done that. That's how I've always done it. Now I'm looking at a TV screen of me looking back at me. So now I'm I got a booger hanging out of my nose, which side looks better and all that. And then they give me the countdown, and the screen goes black, and I start to see a scroll. What is that? And they said, it's your script. I went, and Vince Russo was standing there, and he goes, oh, Shane doesn't need a script, right? But I remember the first line. It was,
they had a teleprompter?
Oh, my God, yeah. I was mortified. And the first line was something, I'm not going to get it verbatim, but it was, Razor Ramon, you're nothing but a street urchin. And I see that ring as my classroom. When I get you into my classroom, I want to teach you a lesson. I said, bro, I ain't saying that. That's cornball stupid. Yeah. And then Vince says, you don't need to tell a script. So then I would get the black screen, right? Which is tough too, because now you see here, the reflection in the screen and whatever. What was your first experience of somebody going, here's a microphone, we want you to do a promo?
It was at one of those early, so the guy that trained me, his name was Mike Mercury, his favorite wrestler of all time is you, by the way.
He's a smart guy,
yeah. Definitely. He ran, it was like a show. Actually, he had public access. Okay. And there was a group of guys that worked for the local ABC affiliate who would volunteer their services. They would come in with good cameras and stuff, and they would do all the editing.
Man, that's incredible.
And so they would have this set up, and I remember just we get to cut promos.
Yeah.
And I would make sure that I cut a promo every single chance that I got.
Were you knowledgeable enough at that point that it was 30, 60, or 90, or did you just go?
Just kind of go. Yeah. There would be somebody there that would be kind of you got. Yeah, in 10 seconds, when there's 10 seconds left, we'll do this, or there was some cue.
I always talk about Ricky. I mountaintop Ricky. I have mad respect for the guy, dear friend, but not the greatest stick guy, right? And so, now you put yourself in as Ricky Steamboat's partner. It's like Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas down here. And I would get called to the office, and Bill Watts would say, hey, I've been watching your promos, and you you need to start the promo and give Ricky something 5 seconds in the middle, and then you wrap it, because Ricky paid no attention to the cues. So like, it'd be 5 seconds, he'd start to do a sentence, right? So we had to do it again and again. And he was fine with it. He didn't like doing them. And it gave me the chance to really start to expand a little bit, because I got this legend standing next to me. And, and I knew it was integral because of the wrestling I'd grown up watching. So my friends and I, you talked about how you guys did in the Access. My friends and I told you we built a ring, and I'll tell you that story off camera after. These guys have all listened to this before. And after we had done that, we had a little show. But my one friend, Bill Peterson, who later worked for the Pennsylvania State Police, and he gave the lie detector tests, power lifter, strong guy, but never really wanted to get in the business. His dad owned a bar, and so we would go down on Sundays and we'd clean the bar for his dad. We'd sneak a little sip of beer and watch football or whatever. But then we were done with everything. Over behind the pool table, we were with the Super 8 camera, no sound, do promos.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the one we hit, one of our guys, he goes down behind, there was ketchup down, and he splashed the ketchup. I mean, it's so cornbally watching, but it's great. It's like preparing you, setting you up.
Yeah, definitely.
Now,
I used to do that with my friends. We would get the video cameras out, and we would make our own little movies and stuff.
Because you're talking about when wrestling was mammoth, right? It's, it still is because of the online and everything. The ratings aren't necessarily apples to apples, but at one point I had done this because I had that promotion we were working on. I had to divvy this information to show the investors. And when I came to the number, I'm thinking, that can't be right. I'm screwing something up. I'm adding a 10 somewhere. And I keep going over it and over it and over it. And I came to the conclusion that with all 3 of the companies running, and then the replays on Thursdays and Saturdays, there was an average weekly viewership in America of 48 to 52 million people watching wrestling.
Wow.
Now you ponder that, like, it's no wonder why when you'd go to the airport or the grocery store, Taz beats your ass, whatever, because everybody was watching it in one form or another. And so you're coming in at that time. In one sense, it would seem easier, but also now, were you aware, was there a lot of pressure on that because you had all those people watching, and you've got Taker and you've got Austin, you've got all these guys around, or was it more welcoming and you felt sure because you had those guys?
Those guys were super welcoming when I came there.
Good. I wouldn't be shocked if you said otherwise.
It was, and there was a difference between the two sides. Raw, there was a Raw and SmackDown split.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right at the time, it was there was a definitive brand split, and I was on SmackDown, and I always talk about it just is what it is. I'm not arfing. I'm not really complaining. I'm not trying to bury people, but it just was this way at the time. You had guys on the SmackDown side, say Kane, Taker, Batista, Finley, Booker T, Rey Mysterio, Chris Benoit, all these guys, and they were all at the top of this mountain, and they were throwing rope ladders over the side, and they were extending their hand and saying, come on, we can all exist up here. The air is fine up here. And they would always, every single one of those guys would pull me aside when I'd come back from my match and help me, or if I went to them specifically, and I felt like on the other side, on the Raw side, guys were dumping buckets of hot oil over the side, and kicking boulders down and stuff like that. It was such a weird. And
on the product level, coming out of that, the SmackDown and Raw sides, did one? Because again, I wasn't watching all the time, being on the road, but did the way you had it with the SmackDown guys? Yeah. Did it seem like that product was excelling and the other was being lagged, or was there no discernment?
So I think that, and I'm probably biased, right? Because I was there, but I felt like Raw was definitely the flagship show. It was definitely the A show from a business standpoint, from a Vince standpoint, and SmackDown was the B show. But SmackDown was a far superior product, I believe.
Well, the talent list,
wrestling, the talent list, and guys would just go out there. I remember Booker T and Chris Benoit had this best of 7 match.
Oh, I remember those
best of 7 series. Yeah. And they would go out and do 3 segments.
Yeah.
And they would know the finish.
Yeah.
And they would just call everything on the fly.
Sure.
Like just watching master classes week after week after week.
Yeah.
And
I'm curious with like this, like you mentioned the names on the SmackDown side. And not if you don't want to be feel like you're put on the spot or whatever. Who were the people on the Raw side? Like what was the
Michaels? It was Shawn. It was Triple H, John Cena. Those guys I felt like were stay off the mountain.
Yeah. See, we were talking last night at the building. We were on a show last night in Bluefield together, West Virginia, and talking about the death of 1,000 cuts and how the people get so cutthroat in the business. And Ric Flair, if you're listening out there, nobody's ever you could try as good as you are. You're not taking us together ain't taking a spot.
Yeah.
So it always amazes me when I see that. What I call the politics in the business was like cancer. Help each other. That was the difference I saw in ECW. From the beginning, everybody was like,
it's like a family.
Support each other. And my God, was it fun.
Everybody too, right?
Yes, and nobody was going, I want to get a Shane spot or whatever. We were all in our spots, and I was going to be here, and I'd be here, and it just kept going like that. But it was such a refreshing approach to the business. Did SmackDown feel like that? And would you often get the opportunity, or would you ever get the opportunity to be on the Raw?
Yeah, it was definitely like that. And then there were times where we would have to do like a crossover thing where the SmackDown guys would invade Raw for something. Yeah. I remember it was like SummerSlam where a bunch of SmackDown guys came over and interfered in some match.
Right.
But then eventually I got drafted over to Raw. So then I was on Raw. And
so you go
still
from this,
felt...
Yeah, you go from this supportive atmosphere.
Yes. Yeah. And like a rocket ship to now. And then I felt like, I remember I worked with, I had no problems working with all these guys.
Sure.
And then suddenly I worked Triple H on a house show. And then it was like I went from, being able to work to I'm too stiff in the ring, I'm too clunky, I'm difficult to work with. It was really weird and frustrating. And I went from, people would ask me like, is it everything you ever thought it would be? And I was like, yes. It was awesome when I was first there. And then the last year and a half was miserable for me.
And what a dichotomy.
Right.
You're telling me, man, I've made it to the NFL. And a year later, it sucks. I don't think I've ever heard anybody in the NFL go, man, I wish I could go back to college ball.
No, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Very similar to the stuff I had seen, and I won't belabor those points, but Shawn Michaels is an incredible performer. Triple H has made his bones. Again, just like you couldn't take Flair's things, you're not going to take Heartbreak Kids. So why not help each other? Because ultimately, I want to see every seat out there with an ass in it. If I can't do it and you can, come on board, man. Help me out. I don't get it.
That was the thing. Like we wanted if the whole show is good, and if everybody's good, then
wins for everybody. The fans win. Yeah. Company wins. You win.
Yep.
So
then we can all go out and hang out afterwards and get drunk, and
which is how it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
That was the biggest letdown to me. Like all this time I'm training with Dominic through college. And I'm hearing the stories and the camaraderie of how, like when Bruno broke his neck, Dominic was going to take him to the airport. He wouldn't go to the hospital there because he knew his mother would have a heart attack if he was in New York and there. So Dominic was going to drive him to the airport, and Bruno said, no, I'll take it. You have to work tomorrow. And I'm like, my God, you've got like 3 broken bones in your neck and you're driving a cab to the airport. And I had never seen it when I got into wrestling until ECW. And so for me, it was just like, oh man, finally, Now, again, I don't want to. I think sometimes the viewers might think I'm just taking these shots because they know I don't like these guys or get along with these guys. Vince, you can say whatever you want about him. We said this earlier. You would never hear me say, I think Vince McMahon is stupid.
Right.
How does Vince see that? And this dichotomy, SmackDown is the supportive and cohesive group of everything's working. And then over here, we're getting this. Why didn't he step in and do something with that?
He liked it. Like I feel like he kind of got a kick out of it.
Yeah. trial by fire type of thing.
Yeah, like, you know, you like to see people sort of simmer and cook a little bit. And
I definitely believe that.
Yeah.
Yep. I always said, like, what do you get a billionaire for Christmas? A tie? He's already got a bunch, right?
Right.
He likes to play with people's lives.
People.
Yes, yes.
And people's emotions and stuff.
Yeah,
and,
but also playing with their dreams and their livelihoods and their life. It's I don't know. It's now
there were tests and stuff like that, right? Like little.
Sure. And see, that was the thing. By the time. Again, in the way I'd heard Dominic and Bruno talk and all those guys, but then also in the business, okay, you've been around the business 12, 13, 14, 15 years. Surely they know you're a professional or you wouldn't have been there for 15 years. And, you know, it just always seemed very condescending. Like if I was starting a promotion today, I'd say, okay, let's bring Kennedy in. And, okay, now, Ken, we're going to test you for 6 months and see if he'll take the shit. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's just silly.
Let's just... We're adults. Like
we need to skirt over something very quickly, and I don't mean to do this abbreviated, but I know we're going to run out of time soon. We went from Wisconsin, all of a sudden now you're in the WWF, and all these things are happening. What was the conduit in the WWF?
So I kept 1 year in. There was a Pro Wrestling Illustrated that used to come out, and you know they had the PWI 500.
Yeah,
and then they would also have an issue that would come out, and it had all of the addresses for all the major wrestling companies in the country.
Okay, wow.
And the first page was WWF, the second page was WCW, the third page was ECW, and then there would be like smaller blocks on the for the rest of the magazine for all these other independent wrestling organizations. And WWF was right there, 1241 East Main Street, Stamford, Connecticut. And I remember 06902. And I put together a tape, and I'm like, I'm going to send this in. I remember asking this local promoter, I was like, I'm going to send this tape. You think I should send it? And he was like, don't send the tape. You're not. You're way too green.
Right.
They're going to see it. They're going to just, and then they're always going to put you into that box. And I just remember thinking like, no. I'm going to send it, and even if they do think
ballsy,
it's the shits,
guys. This is ballsy.
Yeah, big time. If you go back and watch my match from 1 year in, it was terrible. It was. I definitely wouldn't send that to somebody today. But I remember thinking, if it sucks, if it's the shits, they'll tell me about it, and then 6 months later, when I send another tape, then they'll see that I've improved. And that was my mentality. And I sent it, and a week later, Kevin Kelly called me and said, Ken, I got your tape. I liked it. I want to bring you in for extra work. We're doing Chicago and Milwaukee, and gave me the details. And so I went, and I was an extra, and I was nervous as hell.
I bet.
I, go from being a fan to standing behind Steve Austin and catering, getting
the guy you'd originally watched.
That was like the guy that got me into the business, right? And so I started sending tapes on a regular basis. Like every 3 to 6 months, I'd send a new tape, and I would call Kevin and say, Kevin, I see that you guys are in Cleveland and Detroit for Raw and SmackDown. Can I be an extra?
Right.
Yep. You can do that. And so I started doing that. I probably had I ended up in Cleveland, my first dark match, or it was actually on Jacked, I think. There was a show called Jacked. Yeah. And I worked Esse Rios and in a little squash match. Yeah. And so I just started doing that, and I would send tapes, and then it became, Kevin Kelly left, and it became Dr. Tom Pritchard, and I developed a relationship with him.
Tom,
and then that I still have to this day, and then it became Tommy Dreamer, and so I started having a back and forth with Tommy, and then I was at Raw or SmackDown. And the nice thing about it was they used to allow the extras to actually get in the ring and wrestle during the day.
Okay.
So for whatever reason on this day...
Were the guys down there like working with you guys?
No, they would say like the extras, go get your shit on and go stand by the ring. And then they would go, all right, you guys can get in. And we would do like these tag in, tag out drills. So two guys would get in the ring and just chain around a little bit, and then you'd tag somebody else. And
would Tom be running that, or
no?
It
would be Arn Anderson and Fit Finley would be standing there, and
what do they know?
Yeah, right. And then there were times too where those guys would be just working with Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, and we would just sit there and like sponges. They would almost put on these little clinics.
Yeah.
And I remember one day I was in there, I was tagging, doing that little tag in, tag out drill, and for whatever reason there was a meeting. So everybody, all the staff, the arena was completely empty except for Jim Ross and Paul Heyman had skipped out on the meeting, and they were sitting ringside. And I tagged out. I got in and I did my stuff and I tagged out. And Paul said, "Come here for a second." And I walked over to him. He was like, "Who trained you?" And I said, "I got trained by two guys in Green Bay, Mike Mercury and Eric Hammers." Yeah. And then I said I went to Brad Rangan's school for some finishing or whatever. And he was like, "Oh, I know." He knew Brad. Sure. Obviously, Brad trained Brock. And he was like, and we had a really good conversation. And then he said, "I would like to see you cut a promo later today." And then he gave me his number and told me to call him. And I called him every day for like the next 6 months and never got a call back.
I don't feel bad.
No, I did. And then, I'd run into somebody and tell them, and they were like, "That's just Paul. Don't worry about it." That's just a business, I think, right?
Well, it shows, like, again, for any of the young wrestlers, the wannabes out there, that was unheard of in the business, sending in tapes every so often and following up, and that's a professional way to approach it. Oddly enough, that was what started happening in ECW. Like, once we got ECW and running, people started sending tapes in, or they'd come by and Tracy would run the tryouts in the ring or whatever. Because there's a lot going on here. We're squeezing a lot of stuff in, and we'll come back at a later episode because I want to get deeper into this. But so now that you've gotten the attention, which is the hard part, right? I mean, it's 1,000. How many wrestlers in the country are there? How many people have a pair of boots? Yeah, and they all say they're good. They can do it, right? But it seems to me as you're telling this story, Jim Ross and Arn and Fit and all these people that are each taking their time, because when I went there the first time, I told you there was no guarantee of a job. It was just I would do the same thing only because Dominic told me. Just periodically call Pat, just say hello. I never once asked for a job or anything. But when I left WCW and I called him, he said, "We got something. We'll bring you up and give you a chance." And I'm seeing the similarities. But again, I'm just in my head, I'm sort of scattershot here because I can't imagine me being ballsy enough to send a videotape of me of some local match that I had somewhere, because these are the best of our best in the business, supposedly, right? Yep. So you talked about your friends earlier that helped you, sort of got you back to watching wrestling. Did any of them endeavor to get into the business or follow you? Mm-hmm. No,
not any of them.
So they got you and shoved you out there. Hey, see if he sinks or swims, right?
Yeah, in fact, they didn't even, they were just sort of casual fans. They weren't even diehards. Yeah. I became a diehard.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm going to do this. And when I decided I was going to do it, I was like, I'm going to make it to WWF or WWE.
Yeah. So now, again, let's just jump forward a little bit because I want to hopefully get to something here by the end. You're doing this, you're sending this stuff in, you talk to Paul, you do these things and stuff. Where from there? Where does Mr. Kennedy, when does Ken Kennedy get this call from the company?
So that's a great question. So Paul Heyman had said, I like you, I'm going to go to bat for you, whatever. Arn Anderson actually said after because he would be my producer. I did a lot of dark matches and squash matches, and he would always say "Sorry, kid, tonight's not your night. Yeah, it's his night." And I would be like, "Arn, I know,
no problem. Yeah,
yep." And he knew that, and to
a guy, I'm going to keep cutting you off, but for a guy like Arn, seeing a kid come in and say that, he's royalty in our business, right? He knows the kid's got the right attitude, right? He's like, "Hey, make me the star tomorrow. Where's my belt?" Right?
Yeah, right. And my idea was I wasn't trying to get my shit in. It was, I want to get your shit in and make you look good. And in doing so, you end up looking good.
Yeah, sure.
Because
absolutely,
he gets it. He knows.
Yes.
And so Arn said I don't say this very often, but the next time they're having a round of hiring, I'm going to go to bat for you. I'm going to put your name in there. I can't guarantee you anything.
Sure.
And then I remember Davari called me one day. Davari was he was my best friend in the business. And, and he had gotten hired by the company about a year before I did. And he said, did you get a call from Tommy today? And I said, no. He said, well, they hired 8 guys from the Louisville area. You should be getting a call. If you're going to get a call, you'll get a call soon.
Right.
And so like I just waited by the phone all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Time flowing backward,
Monday,
right?
Nothing. Tuesday, and every time that there would be a unknown number, I would answer it.
Sure.
And it was a bill collector. But normally I would just let that stuff go to voicemail,
right.
but like I was answering everything.
Sure.
Nothing. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to call Tommy. And I used to call him, like I said, once every 3 to 4 weeks and just check in with him.
Sure.
And I would always say, hi, Tommy Dreamer. This is Ken Anderson from Green Bay. And he would go, hello, Ken Anderson from Green Bay. And then he would oftentimes say, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I can't talk to you right now. I will call you back. And then he would never call me back.
Mr. Excitement, Tommy.
Yeah. I just won the Super Bowl. I just won $1 billion in the lottery. So I called. I was on my break at work, and I made that call. And I said, Tommy, this is Ken Anderson from Green Bay. And he goes, Ken Anderson from Green Bay. Hang on a second. And I hear him shuffling some papers around. Yeah. I'm going to put you on hold for a second. And I was like, this never happens. This is, yeah. And so he comes back and he goes, I've been trying to call you, but your number is disconnected. And I was like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And he goes, is your number blah, 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 blah? And I said, no. He goes, oh, I've been calling the wrong number. And he goes, well, the reason I was calling you was to tell you that I got you a job.
Wow.
And I was just like.
And what year is this?
This was 2004 or 2005. And
okay.
I'm like, I wanted to do backflips.
Sure. Yeah.
And
of course.
Containing myself. And he just kind of went through, I don't know if you're going to go to OVW, or at the time they were opening up Deep South in Atlanta, but they hadn't opened it yet. He's like, I don't know if you're going to go there, if you're going to go to OVW, but so is there anything else you want to tell me? And I was like, Tommy, thank you for believing in me, giving me this opportunity. I'm gonna do. And he goes, okay, you don't have to go getting all lame on me. And that was it. Yeah. And like I said, like I didn't know where I was gonna go. And Davari was like, you don't want to go to Deep South because OVW is established.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen at Deep South.
Right.
They literally could pull the plug on it next week, but OVW is not going anywhere. So he actually talked to Tommy and said, can you send him to OVW? Send him to OVW. And so then Tommy said, you can go to OVW. Well, he also told me, he was like, just stand by. We'll call you in a couple weeks for you to come down. Well, I went and I put in my 2-week notice, and I went down, and over the phone, I found an apartment, sent in my deposits, and got a place. And I remember I moved down there. We loaded everything up in a U-Haul and moved down there. My girlfriend at the time, and we moved everything in. And I called Tommy, and I was like, Tommy, is there any way that I'm in Louisville, is there any way that I could go over and like introduce myself to the people at OVW? And he was like, he goes, TV tomorrow. Are you there just like looking for a place? And I was like, no, I'm here. And he goes, wait, you're there? You live there? Yeah. And I was like, yes. And he goes, well, then go introduce yourself tomorrow, and then you can start the next day.
Wow.
And like I said, who knows? Like, because I had known some people who had gotten contracts who were told, sit tight. Yeah. And then 8 months goes by, they're still sitting at home, and then they ended up getting released. And I was like, I'm not letting that happen to me.
But it shows volition, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're showing the company that you're invested in it. I want to get this quickly because knowing the business, it's very obvious to me, or maybe I've got it wrong. There's the whole presentation with the mic and all that has Vince written all over to me. Not that it might not have been your idea, but it was obvious that somebody said, let's cut this segment and make it special in some way. What was Vince? How long from Ohio Valley before you started this kind of interactions with Vince?
This was crazy. I was at OVW for about 6 months, just kind of floundering and trying to find my way.
Yeah.
And Jim Cornette was writing at the time. And Jim had 80 other men and women that he was looking at,
right,
who were also trying to get to TV.
Yeah.
And he had 1 hour of TV time every week. And, you know, you have these random names. I always felt like he had these hats, you know, like baby faces and heels. And he would just go like,
yeah,
here, you guys got 6 minutes, go. And you got to try to get yourself over. And It's really hard to do that.
Sure.
So I'm like working really hard and training and trying to get myself on TV, but nothing was really happening. And Cornette paintbrushed the shit out of Santino Marella backstage. Got fired. I was standing right next to him, like from me to you away. I was standing right there. And then the next day, they said Cornette's fired, and Paul Heyman's coming in. Well, Paul Heyman came in, and I got to the building. TV was on Wednesday. OVW TV was on Wednesday. I got to the building at like noon. And it was just me and Paul in the office, and he was like, come here, I want to talk to you. And he pulled me aside, and he was like, I've been a fan of yours for a really long time, since that first time that I saw you. Right. You remembered pulling me aside. And then also, he would come down and do promo class with us. Like every 2 months, he would come down and sit.
Nice.
It would just be a tripod and a camcorder, Paul and me.
Sure.
And I'd cut a promo, and then he would go, and he would critique it, and then you were to go home that night, fine-tune it, come back the next day, and then you reshoot it with him.
Yeah.
And he always had great feedback and criticism for me on day one, and then day two, he would go, okay, good, loved it.
Yeah.
And then that would be it, and I would like, any feedback or anything?
Right.
Nope, loved it. And I was like, oh, this guy hates me, fuck.
Yeah.
And
the one thing about Paul, he has a great eye for talent, right? I mean, and knows what to do with that talent. In my career, I've, again, Dusty and Bill Watson, so many greats, but Paul, different in a lot of ways, but boy, he could figure out how to take you, him, me, and make it something special.
And hide your weaknesses and really, really bring out your positives.
Correct. Yeah.
And so he would never he would never put me over to my face or anything like that.
That's a thing for him, by the way.
Very, he was very professional and just, but there wasn't a whole lot. And he's like, I just want you to know I've been a fan of yours. I've been watching your promos. I've been paying attention to what you're doing down here. And I'm going to do so much stuff with you over the course of the next couple of weeks that you're going to be the next guy out of here. And that night, true to his word, OVW show was a 1 hour show, probably 53 minutes with commercials and all that stuff, right? 52. I had like 35 minutes of that show that night. Yeah. Between matches, backstage promos, segments, and things like that. And
no real push other than previous.
Up until that point. Yeah. This was like brand new.
And he would have done that if he didn't see something special.
Right.
If he was giving you lip service, he'd say, hey, you're great, big star. You got 3 minutes, go.
Yep.
Right? Instead, wow. It's such an unorthodox approach. And step into the business.
Yep. And 5 weeks later, and then so 2 weeks after that, he said, tonight on your way to the ring, I want you to cut the ring announcer off. His name was Dean Hill. I want you to cut him off, cuss him out, dress him down. Then you do your own introduction and you make it big. And, and he sort of like did a version of what I do today.
Yeah.
And so I went out and I did it. And I flashback, I had, in high school, I announced basketball games. And somewhere along the way, I started doing the last name twice.
Yeah.
And people would love it. It worked. You know? And people would love it. And so when I was in the ring, I hit my name. And then I was like, I hit my last name twice.
Yeah.
And I came back through the curtain and everybody was like, keep doing that. That was awesome.
All right. When I was a kid in the business, the old timers would always say, got to find a way to be different, kid. Find a way. So you just sort of stumbled into it and had it.
It was just like an accident,
Wow.
And then 5 weeks later, I get a phone call. Ken, this is Tommy. They want to see you at Raw or at SmackDown this week.
Dude, like this is like the quickest shot I've ever heard of.
And then they wanted to see me, and they want to see your gimmick too. They want you to do the thing. And so I went there, and that day I was wrestling. It was supposed to be Funaki.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be just a dark match. And Funaki was going to super kick me at the end, 1, 2, 3. That was going to be the end of it. And I remember earlier in the day, Brooklyn Brawler was also in charge of doing all like the behind the scenes pre-tapes and stuff like that. Right. He pulled me aside and said, they want to hear a promo out of you. So I cut a promo. And I remember standing there and I was thinking about what I was going to say. And then Brawler would be like, maybe this. And he would like give me a couple pointers or whatever. And I would go, okay, all right. And then I would start working whatever he said into my, and then he'd go, or this. And then he would, and I would be like, yeah, I can do that. And then I would start reworking it. And finally I was like, you know what? I got it.
Yeah.
And so I just like, I cut my promo and I remember he said, that was really good. Yeah. He goes, I'm going to tell Vince. I'm going to tell Vince that was a great promo. And then...
Why? Go ahead. I mean, because I'm just floored.
So then later on that day, this is like a crazy, crazy turn of events and like a culmination of, you know, it'd been 6 years of working independence and beating down the door, trying to beat down the door. Yeah. And so I'm standing in gorilla position or just outside of gorilla and I'm doing push-ups and I'm kind of going through what we're going to do. And Dave Lagana, who's the head writer of SmackDown at the time, walks around the corner and he goes, there's been a change. And I went, in my head, I'm going, fuck, they cut it. I got cut. Whatever, that's fine. Yeah. I'll live to see another day. But he goes, actually, he goes, this is now going to be a televised match. It's going to be on Velocity. He goes, we need to come up with a finisher for you because you're going over and welcome aboard.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And Fit Finley was my producer. And he was like, what do you do for a finish? And I was like, what's something you can, I did a swanton at the time, but Jeff Hardy was obviously there. I can't do that.
Sure.
So I was like, I had done a Finley roll, but I had tried it off the second rope. And I knew that if the guy like hugs really tight and I pull him into me, I know that I can take care of him and not hurt him, but it looked crazy. Yeah. It looks devastating. So I said, I do that. And Funaki's eyes went. And I was like, I promise you, like, if you hold on to me, hold really tight, I'll take care of you. You won't feel it. Okay, I'll do it. And then, so I went out and I remember, you know, before I went out there, Arn came up and he was like, get your shit in. Like, this is your night, you know?
Your chance, right?
And so I went out and I remember it was almost like I wasn't nervous. It was the first, I was nervous, but it was like, I just like
exhilarating. I
felt like I belong here now. And like, this is right. This feels right. And I really took my time with everything and I came back through the curtain and Vince went.
Nice.
And then I came out and Arn, Johnny Ace, and Fit were all standing there and they said, like, you just got yourself a job, kid. And that was it. And from that moment on, Vince was like, a couple of weeks later, I was in his office and he was like, I want you to be in my office every day. I want to see more of you.
Wow.
You know, it's not ass kissing. It's not ass kissing. It's just like, I want to get to know you a little bit.
Ass pecking.
Yeah. That's right.
Hey, we're
little smooch.
Yeah. This is a great cliffhanger. I want to ask one real quick question. We're getting the time cues here. Were you aware at that time how truncated that was? That was not the norm to get into WWE or F then. Were you aware of that, or is it just along for the ride?
That wasn't normal?
Yeah, that was not normal.
At that point, I knew that nothing was normal. You know, like nothing about this business is normal.
Right.
And everybody's story is so different.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is...
It's to me, the all those little things that, again, for you kids out there that are thinking this ain't going to make a difference. I think it's the sum is greater than the parts, right? Where he's sending these tapes in, he's calling Tommy, he's doing all these things. And I'm sure at some point, this guy's a pain in my ass. Like, somebody take a look at it, right? But it just boom, because it's such, I've never heard of any other shot into the WWE that quickly, that directly, but it makes perfect sense, right? With where they were going with the company at that time. Mm-hmm. And for the kids out there that said, Tommy won't take my call, so-and-so won't hear me, if he won't read my letter. You tried all those things, and somebody obviously did.
Yep.
So.
And no today just means no today.
Yeah.
Or the worst part about the wrestling business is you don't get a no, you don't get a yes, you get nothing. You get radio silence, right?
Yes.
Like, that's just.
Yeah.
But just because it doesn't work out today doesn't mean that that's forever. It's just right now, no.
Right. Real quick before we wrap up, can you, like social media, where can the fans talk to you?
I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Mr. Ken Anderson. I really don't use Twitter too much, or X.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook, Ken Anderson. We have my wrestling school. I give out my number regularly if you look at my social media, if you go to my Instagram, my phone number is all over. If you're interested in booking me or getting a video shout out, I do those directly through me. I don't go through Cameo or anything like that. And if you're interested in getting into the business, I'd like to help you. 507-722-2776 is my phone number.
This is the guy with the fairy dust. I'm telling you, because I've never heard that version of the end. We definitely have to have you back, because like we've only really scratched the surface. I'm still getting hooked in by these things. But this is what I love about doing this show. I mean, I've been for years. Every time I do these, I learn things I didn't know before. I'm like, wow, I never guessed that. You know, that story you just told is like, woo,
right.
Getting slide to the top.
That's cool.
Appreciate you being here.
Also, I also have a podcast I just started recently.
Please, yeah.
It's on, we're all over Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube. It's called Mic Check with Mr. Anderson. And
hey, here's a question I've been wanting to ask. I know we got to go through this. How close you were winning the world title? Were you ever in that mix?
Yeah. So WrestleMania 23 Ford Field, I won the Money in the Bank briefcase. And then fast forward, I had said in a promo that I was going to wait until WrestleMania the following year and cash it in.
Yeah.
That was the plan. I mean, there were, at the time, there really weren't many plans. It was just sort of
plodding along.
Yeah, and people get injured, people get in trouble.
Move the pieces
these things
around.
Happen, but I cut that promo at the very least. And so I've got the briefcase. Taker's the title, or Taker's the champ.
Right.
And one night after a SmackDown, I got a phone call from Nabes, from Michael Hayes.
Oh,
Michael Hayes called me.
Yeah.
He said, "Where are you? The boss needs to see you in his office." So go to the office, and Batista was coming out at the time that I was walking in, and he just like gave me a big hug, and he was like, just patted me on the back. And, well, what's that all about?
Yeah.
And I walk in, and he says, "All right, well, we wanted Taker to be the champ for a really long time. He's tore his biceps, got to have surgery. We need to get the title off him. So next week, we're going to have you come out and cash in your briefcase, and you're going to be the new champ." And he laid out this on Taker, and he laid out this whole scenario where I wasn't just going to beat him. Obviously, he was going to be involved in a match, like a cage match, which he was going to barely squeak out a victory, and then somebody else was going to come out and do some more damage, and then I was going to come in and basically pick the bones, cash it in, top him 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And so that night, I went out with Michael Cole and Mark Carano, which we weren't like really super tight. I think it was just we happened to be in the lobby at the same time, and like, you want to go grab a couple drinks? Sure. Yeah. And they happened to know. They were in the know that this was going to happen. And so they were like buying shots and stuff and toasting. And I remember, like, I'm not superstitious, but I remember thinking, like, it hasn't happened yet. We shouldn't be celebrating something that hasn't happened. Right. So then the next week we were in Poughkeepsie. We did a double shot in the same building. And the first show we did like this 8-man tag. And I remember Batista pulled me out of the corner, gave me like a little, pulled my arm, gave me a short clothesline. Yeah. I went down, I felt something pop in my triceps. And it was kind of like this. I rolled out and immediately it was like that, where the color was already coming and it was really getting, and I remember Fit was standing right there and he was like, "That doesn't look good." And I went,
exactly what you want to hear.
Well, that doesn't look good. And so fast forward that night, Hornswoggle drove me to the ER. I got an MRI. And then I went and I waited in my hotel room. Stephanie called me the next day and she said, "Ken, you tore your triceps off the bone."
Oh, shit.
You're going to have surgery. You're going to be out for 8 to 10 months. Unfortunately, though, we still need to get the title off of Taker. So we're going to have Vince's jet is going to come and pick you up. We're going to send a car. You're going to go meet Vince's jet. The jet's going to fly you to Penn State. For Raw tonight, Edge is going to challenge you for the briefcase, and then Edge is going to go on and do what you were supposed to do with Taker.
Jeez.
Okay. And I remember thinking at the time, like, there isn't any other way you could get the title off him. Like, it has to be this way. Like, I got a year to cash this in. Even if I'm gone for 10 months, I can come back
boil the story.
And cash it in, you know. But I just, okay, whatever. Business is business. And I did the thing. I remember Vince was like, what can you do? Not much. I could barely move my arm. So they taped it up, padded it all up. And I just had Edge jump me out of the curtain and beat me up all the way to the ring, throw me in, ring the bell, spear, 1, 2, 3. That's pretty much how it went down. Next day I go down to, I'm in Birmingham, Alabama for
James Andrews.
James Andrews,
sure.
right? I'm sitting on his table and he literally was like this. And he was like, that's not a tear. That's not a tear. No, that's not a tear. And he was like, you can tell when there's a tear, you can feel like a hole there.
Sure, you have a gap,
there's nothing there. Like everything's intact. That's not a tear. But he couldn't find my MRI, so I had to do another MRI, which sucks. I'm claustrophobic a little bit. I hate,
especially back to back like that, right? A couple of days apart.
Luckily, there's an open MRI where it's open on the sides, and that was the one I was able to do. But yeah, sure enough, comes back a couple hours later. It was just a large hematoma. It was just a bunch of broken blood vessels. Oh my God. And he's like, you'll be back in like a month. And it was really, really painful. I will say, like, it felt like it, you know, that internal bleeding or whatever.
Yeah.
It felt like my skin was gonna. At one point, I wanted to like just stab
Lance
it.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, like that was.
What a rib. Mm-hmm. So you have this really, we'll call it the sweepstakes blow in.
Yep.
And then you get this.
Yep.
Shitty. The receipt for it, right?
Yeah, right.
Here they're gonna pay for it.
Pull the rug out.
Ever back in that running again?
I think so. I had some. I was still working with that caliber of guys, and I had some good matches and had some good opportunities.
Sure.
Never really I had matches for the world title, but nothing where I was ever gonna like go over for it or anything like that.
And especially somebody with the stature of Taker, right? Mm-hmm. You're gonna no matter how you go over on it. It's, wow, that's a crazy story. He kept telling me it's a crazy story. I always tell people, like, it's not that I'm disinterested in the business. When I'm home as a single dad, I'm not getting on the computer. Hey, what's on Facebook today or whatever, right?
Yeah.
We joked about that yesterday with the, hold on, let me tell you, we're going to see what I'm doing right now in the world, right? Because I'm so important. Yeah. But like I said, we could probably go about another 6 hours on this because it's all enthralling to me. But I certainly appreciate you being here and reciprocate. I'll be on the podcast. Again, Mr. Kennedy here, Ken Kennedy, whichever one of the Twin Rivers Jack,
Two Rivers Jack.
I keep saying twin, right? Two Rivers Jack. Appreciate you being here. I'm sure the viewers out there, thank you. Appreciate you being here. Definitely going to have him back. Appreciate you guys being here for Appalachian Expose. We'll see you next time.